17 years. That's how long I gave them. 17 years of swallowing my pride with stale office coffee, of letting my wedding ring leave a tan line on my finger from all the overtime. I was the ghost in the building before sunrise, the one who fixed the CFO's spreadsheet errors at midnight so the board wouldn't see the cracks. I missed my daughter's first recital because of a critical deadline. Missed my 10th anniversary when the system crashed. Even missed my father's funeral. Carl's exact words. Take the day, but the quarterly report won't write itself. My name is Mike Callahan, 53, a corporate lifer who gave 17 years of my life to a company that tossed me out like a piece of trash. And for what? For a desk that wasn't even mine anymore by 5:01 p.m. on a Tuesday. No, thank you. No gold watch. Just a security guard, some kid half my age with a too-tight uniform, hovering like I'd steal the stapler on my way out. They didn't even let me wipe my computer. Just handed me a cardboard box, the same kind we used for printer paper, and said, HR packed your things. But here's the thing they didn't know. I'd been keeping receipts. Not just the metaphorical kind. Every time Carl patted my back with one hand and stabbed it with the other, I filed it away. Every shady whisper, every off-the-books transfer, every time they told me to be a team player while they rigged the game. I had dates, times, PDFs buried in encrypted clouds. They thought they were erasing me? No. I'd been compiling the autopsy report before the body even hit the floor. 17 years ends on a Tuesday. Of course it does. Tuesdays were always the corporate purgatory, not Monday's fresh hell, not Wednesday's hopeful hump. Just the endless stretch of budget reports and stale coffee breath. The AC was broken again. It always broke on Tuesdays. Like the building itself was sighing, "You're still here." Carl's assistant, Emily, sweet kid, brought in cupcakes for her birthday last month. Couldn't look at me when she said, "He needs you in his office." Her voice cracked on office. That's how you know. After 17 years, you learn the difference between he needs you and he's about to erase you. His door was open. That was the first warning. Carl only kept it open when he wanted witnesses for the knife work. The second warning? The folder. Pale gray. The kind HR uses when they've already backdated your termination paperwork. I'd seen it on Harris's desk 3 months ago, on Rodriguez's 6 weeks back. Now it was my turn to sit across from it like it wasn't already my coffin. He didn't say Mike. Not at first. Just gestured to the chair like he was doing me a favor. The leather creaked under me. Same sound it made when I told him my wife had cancer last year. He nodded then, said, "Take whatever time you need, then dock my vacation days for every chemo appointment." But this got his full attention. He leaned forward, hands folded like a priest about to deliver last rites. "We're restructuring." For syllables to unravel my life. He said it like he was ordering a salad. No hesitation. No wait. Just air. I counted the ceiling tiles while he talked. 12. Same as always. Funny how your brain latches on to stupid shit when it's trying not to put a fist through the drywall. He fed me the script. Market conditions. Strategic realignment. Words so hollow they echoed. I'd heard them before, in the break room whispers, in the hushed calls to legal. But now they were for me. Not personal, he said. Like firing a man 3 months before his daughter's wedding isn't personal. Like erasing 17 years of 60-hour weeks isn't personal. Like the security guard already waiting at my desk wasn't fucking personal. I could have screamed. Could have thrown his fucking Employee of the Year plaque through the window. But I didn't. Because I saw it. The twitch in his jaw when I didn't react. He wanted tears. Begging. A performance to justify the power trip. So I gave him nothing. Just nodded. Asked when my last day was. Watched his pupils dilate when he realized I wasn't going to make him feel like a man for this. Effective immediately. Of course. They'd already deactivated my keycard. I knew because I heard the click when I swiped it on the way in. The sound was softer than I expected. Like a light switch. Off. Gone. The walk back to my desk was a funeral march. The office wasn't quiet. It was dead. Not the hard-at-work silence. The don't make eye contact with the corpse silence. My coworkers, people I'd covered for, people who'd drunk my whiskey at Christmas parties, typed furiously at blank screens. Like if they pretended hard enough, they wouldn't be next. They'd already packed my things. A cardboard box, the cheap kind we used for printer paper. My framed photo of my daughter's graduation, tossed in like a receipt. My lucky stress ball from the '09 merger, missing. Even my goddamn fern was gone. Janice from marketing had always hated that plant. The security guard, Marcus, his badge said, hovered like I might steal a stapler. Kid couldn't have been older than 25. His fingers twitched near his cuffs. For what? A 53-year-old man in a Kohl's tie. The elevator ride down was the longest 90 seconds of my life. Marcus stood too close, breathing through his mouth. I stared at the numbers lighting up, floor by floor, and wondered if Carl was already drafting the email. Mike has decided to pursue other opportunities. Decided. Like I'd woken up and chosen unemployment. Like they hadn't planned this since Q3. Sunlight hit my face when the doors opened. Stupid, cheerful Tuesday sunshine. Marcus asked if I wanted an escort to my car. I almost laughed. My car was the same Honda Civic I'd parked in the Employee of the Month spot 3 times. But I just took my box. Took my dignity. Walked out like a good little soldier. But here's what Carl didn't see. The way my thumb brushed my phone in my pocket. The way my lungs finally unlocked when I hit the parking lot. Because in my hand, a piece of paper with severance agreement printed at the top. And in my phone, a cloud folder labeled Tax Docs 2019. Inside that folder, every single receipt. 3 years earlier. A Thursday. The kind of late-night grind where the office fluorescents buzz like dying wasps and the vending machines hum is the only proof you haven't slipped into some corporate coma. I was neck-deep in the Thompson account, another urgent project Carl dumped on my desk at 4:59 p.m. The kind of favor that started with "you're the only one I trust with this" and ended with me missing my kid's soccer game. The coffee in my mug had gone cold 2 hours ago. Tasted like burnt tires and regret. But I stayed. Always stayed. Because that's what you did when you were 2 paychecks away from missing the mortgage. You smiled and said no problem until the phrase lost all meaning. Then I heard it. Laughter. Not the polite chuckle of a late-night worker, but the rich, belly-deep roar of men who knew they were untouchable. Carl's office. Door cracked just enough to let the sound slip through like a taunt. I shouldn't have listened. But 17 years in that place taught me this. Survival isn't about playing fair. It's about knowing where the knives are buried before they're aimed at your back. So I moved slow, quiet, like approaching a sleeping wolf. The CFO's voice was slick with scotch. Another $50K through the Cayman shell. Auditors won't sniff it. Carl's reply? A snort. Call it consulting fees. Hell, make it 75. The Thompson account's bleeding anyway. Who's gonna notice? More laughter. The clink of glasses. The sound of a pen scratching on paper. The kind of signature that could erase a year's worth of pension contributions with one stroke. I knew what it was. Not creative accounting. Not aggressive fiscal strategy. Fraud. The kind that didn't end with a slap on the wrist, but with orange jumpsuits and headlines. And me? I was the idiot standing in the dark with a front row seat to my own unemployment if I breathed a word. I thought about Walters then. Greg Walters. Bald guy from compliance. The one who'd brought irregularities to HR last year. They'd fired him for time card discrepancies 2 weeks later. Funny how his badge stopped working mid-shift. How security escorted him out while the whole floor watched. How his name became a verb by Friday. Don't pull a Walters. That's when I made my choice. Not to be a hero. Not to risk my family's safety on some moral high ground. But to do what any animal does when it smells a trap. Start digging an escape route. I didn't go home that night. Sat at my desk until sunrise, fingers flying across keys. Pulled every invoice, every project code, every miscellaneous expenditure from the last quarter. Cross-referenced them with the whispers I'd heard. And there it was, the pattern. Small amounts. Scattered across departments. Never enough to trigger alarms. But add them up? $500,000 gone. Poof. Like magic. Except the only rabbit in this hat was Carl's offshore account. I saved everything. Not on the company drive. No, I'd seen how fast IT could misplace files. Not in my desk, where a sudden clean-out could vanish them. I used a burner email. Encrypted drives. Cloud storage under my wife's maiden name. Even a safety deposit box downtown with printed copies, because you never know when a convenient server crash might wipe your leverage. The files had boring names. Q3 tax prep. Budget drafts. The kind of nothing labels that made snooping eyes glaze over. But inside, every dirty secret. Screenshots of altered spreadsheets. Voice memos of Carl joking about cooking the books at the Christmas party. Even a photo of the CFO's handwritten notes. Move dollar to Grand Cayman ACCT. left on a sticky note like it was a fucking grocery list. For 3 years, I carried that weight. Smiled in meetings where Carl patted himself on the back for cost-saving initiatives. Nodded when the CFO praised our clean audits. Played the loyal dog while they fed me scraps and called it a feast. Some nights, I'd pull up the files just to look. Not because I wanted to use them. Christ, I prayed I'd never have to. But to remind myself, you're not powerless. They think you're a cog, but cogs keep the machine running. And sometimes they grind it to a halt. Then came the Tuesday, the folder, the security guard, and suddenly, my just-in-case became my oh, hell yes. They thought they'd left me with nothing. But here's what Carl forgot. The quiet ones were the dangerous ones. Because while the loudmouths are making speeches, we're taking notes. I didn't go home after they fired me. Drove straight to the library, public computers, no cameras. Pulled up every file, every scrap of proof. And then I did what any reasonable man would do after 17 years of loyalty repaid with a boot print. I made copies. I didn't go to the cops. Not because I didn't want to. Christ, I dreamed about watching Carl get handcuffed in that stupid Armani suit, but because I knew how this city worked. Cops meant investigations. Investigations meant delays. And delays? That's where men like Carl thrived. A few calls to his golf buddies at the DA's office. A misunderstanding swept under the rug. A settlement signed in some back room where the only thing changing hands was a thicker envelope for the whistleblower to reconsider. No. If I wanted to burn him down, I needed gasoline, not a match. I needed the one thing his money couldn't buy back, his reputation. Sarah Leong wasn't just any reporter. She was the woman who'd exposed the mayor's bribery scandal last year. The one whose byline made CEOs check their stock prices. Rumor was, she kept a burner phone taped under her desk because of all the death threats. Perfect. Getting to her wasn't easy. I couldn't just email, hey, want to destroy my old boss. So I did it the old-fashioned way. I lied. Created a dummy email. Used a VPN. Sent her a message with the subject line. Grand Cayman transfers, per our call. 1 hour later, her reply. What call? Bingo. We met at Benny's Diner off I-95. The kind of place where the coffee tastes like motor oil and the vinyl booths stick to your thighs in summer. I got there early. Chose the corner booth, sightlines to both exits. Old habits. She was younger than I expected. Late 30s. Hair in a messy bun. Glasses smudged with fingerprints. But her eyes? Sharp. The kind that missed nothing. She slid into the booth, didn't bother with hello. You're not a source, she said. You're a grenade. What's the pin? I pushed the thumb drive across the table. It had a tiny scratch on the side, my way of knowing if it got tampered with. Everything's labeled, I said. Dates. Amounts. Even the offshore account numbers. She didn't touch it. Just sipped her coffee, winced at the taste. Why me? Because you don't scare. Try again. I leaned in, lowered my voice. Because the last guy who crossed Carl? He's driving an Uber now. The one before him? Relocated to Nebraska after a stress breakdown. You're the only one with the balls to print the truth and the reach to make it stick. A pause. Then why now? The waitress refilled my cup. I waited until she was gone. Because they think they got away with it. And I want them to know they didn't. Sarah palmed the drive. Didn't smile. Just said, 2 weeks. Stay off social media. Then she was gone, leaving behind the smell of rain and ink. Those 14 days were the longest of my life. I jumped at every phone notification. Avoided the news. My wife thought I was having an affair. At least that would have been normal. How do you explain I might have just torpedoed our financial stability for revenge over meatloaf? Then, on a Tuesday, because of course it was a fucking Tuesday, it happened. Front page of the Business Chronicle. Above the fold. Headline. Shell game. How Crestline execs funneled millions to offshore accounts. And there, in glorious black and white, was Carl's name. Not buried in paragraph 12. Not allegedly. Right there, bold as brass, alongside screenshots of his own goddamn spreadsheets. The article was brutal. Sarah hadn't just used my files, she'd dug deeper. Found the yacht Carl leased through a dummy LLC. The CFO's consulting fees that matched her daughter's Ivy League tuition down to the penny. Even quotes from anonymous insiders, probably Emily from HR, finally growing a spine. By 9:15 a.m., the stock tanked. By noon, hashtag Crestline fraud was trending. By 3 p.m., the board announced an emergency review. I sat in my car outside a Starbucks, refreshing my phone like it was a slot machine, watching my life's work pay out in real time. Carl didn't go quietly. Of course he didn't. He issued a statement calling it baseless allegations. Hired some crisis PR firm that probably cost more than my severance. But then the SEC filed a motion. The CFO flipped, offered to testify against him in exchange for immunity. And just like that, the rats started jumping ship. Friday, for 58 p.m., 2 minutes before the weekend could save him, the board voted unanimously to terminate Carl with cause. No golden parachute. No farewell email. Just a security escort out the front door, past the very same desks where he'd had me humiliated. Poetic? Nah. Fucking Shakespearean. Someone leaked the video. Of course they did. There's Carl, tie undone, screaming into his phone. There's the guard, same kid who'd walked me out, holding the door like he's savoring the moment. And there, in the comments, the internet's verdict. Enjoy prison, asshole. They offered me my job back. Can you believe that? Some VP called, all syrup and sunshine. Terrible misunderstanding, Mike. We'd love to have your institutional knowledge back in the fold. I laughed so hard I choked. Told him I'd rather set myself on fire than breathe that building's air again. Hung up before he could sputter another lie. Carl? Last I heard, the feds froze his assets. His wife took the kids and the golden retriever to her sisters in Aspen. The golf club revoked his membership. And the best part? That yacht. Turns out it was mortgaged to the gills. Guess creative accounting doesn't pay as well in federal prison. Me? I took the severance, bought a cabin in the Rockies, and taught myself to fish. Funny thing, turns out I like the quiet. No emails, no meetings, just the sound of the river and the occasional bear cub wandering through my yard. Sometimes, when the wind's right, I can still hear it. That click of my keycard deactivating. The sound of a door closing. But here's the secret no one tells you. Some doors should stay shut. And some you burn on your way out. They called it a misunderstanding. That was the word they used. Like firing me after 17 years was just some clerical error, a rounding mistake in the grand ledger of my life. The voicemail came in at 8:03 a.m. I remember because I was sitting on my porch, watching the sunrise over the pines, coffee steaming in my hand, and for the first time in decades, I didn't have to be anywhere. It was the new VP, some slick-haired climber named Reynolds. Voiced like a used car salesman. Mike, we've reviewed the situation, and frankly, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We'd love to have you back. Your institutional knowledge is invaluable. I laughed so hard I scared a chipmunk off the railing. Invaluable. Right. They hadn't wanted me back when I was breaking my back for them. But now, with Carl gone and the stock price in the toilet, suddenly I was invaluable. I called him back. Let him stammer through his pitch about moving forward and new leadership. Then I said, let me save you some time, Reynolds. I'd rather piss on a live power line than set foot in that building again. The silence was sweeter than the coffee. Carl fought, of course. Men like him always do. Hired some high-priced lawyer who'd gotten a senator off a bribery charge. But you can't subpoena a reputation. Can't appeal public opinion. The CFO, Linda, with her perfect highlights and sharper nails, was the first to flip. Offered up Carl's emails like a communion wafer. He directed all transfers, she said. I was just following orders. Funny how loyalty evaporates when prison time's on the table. The lawsuits piled up. Shareholders, the SEC, even the damn golf club sued him for unpaid dues. Last I heard, he was living in his brother's guest house, selling off his watches to pay legal fees. The Porsche? Repossessed. The McMansion? Foreclosed. The wife? Took the kids to Cabo with her tennis instructor. Karma's a bitch, but she's thorough. Someone sent me a link to his LinkedIn last month. Open to new opportunities. Profile picture still in that same Brooks Brothers suit, but the eyes? Hollow. The comments were a graveyard, crickets. Not even the usual corporate bullshit, best wishes. From former colleagues. Just silence. The kind that screams. I bought the cabin with cash. 17 years of 401k contributions, stock options, and every bonus I'd ever squirreled away. It's small. Fridge hums too loud. Porch creaks if you step near the left rail. But the view? Mountains so tall they scrape the sky. Air so clean it hurts your lungs at first, like you're breathing for the first time. I wake up when I want. Drink my coffee watching deer pick through the meadow. Learn to split wood, though I still suck at it. Axe handles got blisters on blisters. Funny thing? I don't miss a damn thing. Not the urgent emails. Not the soul crush of rush hour. Not even the free bagels on Fridays. My daughter visits sometimes. Brings her boyfriend. Kid's a welder. Hands like sandpaper. Calls me sir without irony. First time he came, he helped me patch the roof. Didn't complain once, even when the rain started. At dinner, he asked, "You ever miss the city?" I looked at my kid. Really looked, saw how she'd grown up while I was stuck in meetings, and said, "Not even a little." Sometimes, when the fire's crackling and the whiskey's warm, I let myself remember that last day. Carl's smug little smile. The way he tapped the folder like he was doing me a favor. The security guard's too tight grip on my elbow, like I'd bolt for the copier with a stapler. He thought he'd won. Thought I'd slink off to some sad suburban bar, drowning my rage in happy hour Bud Lights. He never imagined I'd been sitting on enough evidence to bury him alive. That's the thing about guys like Carl. They assume quiet means stupid. Loyal means weak. But grenades don't rattle until you pull the pin. And him? He handed me the pin. All I did was let go. 17 years of my life. Reduced to a severance check, a cardboard box, and a headline. Most people would call that a loss. But here's the truth. Every missed birthday, every ignored raise request, every mic. We're counting on you that really meant Mike. We're exploiting you. They were just kindling. Carl didn't take anything from me that wasn't already burning. All he did was fan the flames. And when the smoke cleared, I walked away with the only thing that matters, my goddamn self-respect. That cabin, the quiet, the peace, that's not a consolation prize. That's victory. And yeah, it was worth every second of the wait.